In 1945, the prominent soldier and statesman Major General Sir Nigel Holmes said that without Southampton we could not have done D-Day. However, because of the secrecy surrounding Operation Overlord, the significance of the port, even today, is rarely recognized. This declassified report from the U.S. National Archives describing the operational efficiency of the signals unit based at the 14th Port at Southampton refers to the changes made to communications to accommodate the U.S. Army moving their headquarters to Southampton 4 weeks before D-Day. Over 2 million GIs embarked from Southampton during World War II. Southampton Civic Center was the location for Buco, the American Build-Up and Control Organization. Buco was a crucial U.S. Army logistical command center which coordinated the flow of U.S. troops, vehicles, and supplies to France following D-Day. It worked in tandem with Little Buco in Normandy to ensure a controlled flow of supplies, managing over 3.5 million troops and 250,000 vehicles moving through the port after June 6, 1944. The declassified document begins, "A typical port signal company operating in Southampton before the invasion of France no doubt was the scene of the greatest concentration of shipping during World War II." With the approach of D-Day, Southampton became not only the center of port communications but to a large extent the center of all the signal communications for southern England and the United Kingdom. Until May 1944, the port signal section performed all communication duties for the 14th Port, its sub-port at Poole, all attached units and the District Transportation Office of the 18th District. In addition, it served as a clearing center for communications to all units in the geographical area adjacent to Southampton. During May 1944, the telephone facilities at the port consisted only of a 2-position 10x50 switchboard, codenamed Texas, at the Civic Center headquarters, and a 2-position 10x50 switchboard, codenamed Thistlewood, at the Maritime Chambers. The Texas switchboard at this time consisted of 91 working extensions in addition to numerous other exchange lines and private wires. The Thistlewood switchboard consisted of 85 working extensions for the port and a number of private and exchange lines. Before D-Day, the teletype section of the port signal office operated 3 machines, 2 British Creed and 1 American TG-7B. The cryptographic facilities included mechanical and normal means for encoding and decoding in both high and low-grade U.S. Army combined American-British cryptograph systems. A radio repair section was maintained to inspect, test and repair radio equipment aboard all U.S. transports arriving in Southampton. TBY transmitting and receiving radios were used for ship-to-shore communications and were installed on all Liberty ships assigned to the port. The Port Delivery Center serviced the headquarters and 68 other units in the geographical area, besides serving as a clearing center for official mail to and from all points in the United Kingdom. Messenger services were operated covering the various sections and installations of the port, special priority messages to static units in the area and to units passing through the staging area, the port's pool detachment, Subport P between Dorchester headquarters of Area D and Southampton and between the Army Postal Services at Southampton and the 14th Port. The signal section had at its disposal 5 jeeps and 2 motorcycles for courier messenger services and 1 jeep for emergency telephone radio maintenance. Emergency power for the port signal setup was provided by a stationary 2-cylinder gasoline driver power unit with an electrical output of 3 kilowatts at 210 volts. This unit supplied enough power to operate the teleprinter and code machines and to provide light for the various sections of the signal center. Emergency power for the telephone communications was supplied by batteries. Besides the operation of signal facilities, the Port Signal Office handled signal supply functions at Southampton. This involved the breakdown, sorting and identification of all signal supplies passing through the port. Constant supervision was necessary to obtain delicate handling of radio equipment. To properly maintain security, armed guards and security officers were assigned to accompany shipments while in transit. As soon as it was definitely established that the port was to be the main center of invasion activity, the port signal officer immediately took steps to meet the anticipated growth in signal services. On March 15, 1944, the following facilities were acquired from Higher Headquarters: 2 additional private wires to the British South Coast Port Switchboard, 1 private wire to European Theatre of Operations, United States Army Headquarters, 2 wires to Headquarters, Southern Base Section, one Model M19 teletypewriter machine. Besides the requisition for the equipment mentioned above, a request was forwarded for additional personnel to man communications. At this time, the port signal section consisted only of 3 officers and 10 enlisted men from the 14th port proper, and a detachment of 1 officer and 15 enlisted men from a signal port service company supplemented by 4 civilian telephone operators. In the beginning of May 1944 the port signal section inaugurated a field telephone system. The purpose of this system was to provide immediate and uninterrupted direct telephone communications so that a coordinated movement of convoys to the port would be facilitated. The system required the installation of a BD-72 switchboard at the Royal Pier. Another addition to the communications network was an entire private wire from South Coast ports to Poole. This was requisitioned through the British War Office signals on the 10th of May, 1944. Prior to that time there was only one line between standing operating procedure and Poole through which the port headquarters could communicate with its subport there. With the arrival of D-Day, a sudden increase in all types of communication arose. More signal facilities had to be made available for the port headquarters, its attached units and all other units located in the Southampton area, so that by the end of June 1944, the signal section acted as clearing center for 116 units. During this peak period, telephone facilities for the port and the marshalling area contained consisted of a 4-position on PMBK-1 switchboard at port headquarters, codenamed Texas, a 2-position 10 by 50 switchboard, codenamed Thistlewood, supplemented by a BD-72 field switchboard at Maritime Chambers, a BD-96 switchboard at the Royal Pier, and 6 switchboards in the marshalling areas. The Texas switchboard contained 85 working extensions, 10 exchange lines, and 36 private wires, ranging from those connecting local installations on the one hand to direct wires to European Theater of Operations United States Army Headquarters on the other. The Thistlewood exchange contained 90 working extensions, 6 exchange lines and 13 private wires. A number of extensions for other switchboards included BC 72-9 Royal Pier 27 and the 14th Port Staging Area 47. One teleprinter section during the port's peak operated 4 machines, an American teletypewriter model N19, an American teletypewriter machine model TC7B and 2 British Creed-type teletypewriters. Assignment of the Buco and Buco West Message Center to the port signal section was made on June 16, 1944. This additional duty included sorting registration, pouching, tagging, dispatching of ship papers and Allied documents to the far shore by plane 3 times daily and by boat 2 times daily. Also the maintenance of records, registrations and receipts signed by the far shore representatives. An officer courier service to the far shore established by the section shortly after D-Day was continued for about 3 months. In connection with this responsibility the section maintained records of registered documents and kept rosters of officers who were assigned couriers. The Signal Delivery Center was responsible for the delivery of all official mail to the continent. This mail was collected by General Headquarters message centers in this area, placed in pouches and sent to the Signal Center where it was relayed to the far shore via naval dispatch boat. The section also received and forwarded considerable quantities of captured enemy documents brought here from the far shore. A group of dispatch riders was attached to the port signal section to deliver high-priority messages to the various headquarters located in the Southampton area. These riders were sometimes designated to lead convoys from starting points to points of embarkation. For these duties the Signal Center had at its disposal 14 jeeps and 43 motorcycles. 2 of the dupes were used for emergency telephone and radio maintenance. The remainder for messenger service. The handling of signal supply during the months after D-Day was a major activity of the port signal section. Special equipment had to be checked so as to prevent imperfect equipment from reaching the far shore. Damaged items were immediately returned to originating depots. Careful attention was given to urgently needed signal supplies known as Red Bull Express shipments, which were started on D-Day. An average of 217.5 tons of signal consignments were handled daily during the period when the Red Bull Express was operating. An example of the type of signal equipment that was given Red Bull priority was that received on 6 of June 44, 37 rolls of wire 130, during the period from May 25, 1944 to October 10, 1944. The unit through its headquarters and many detachments operated and maintained under adverse conditions and with insufficient tools or equipment, and in some cases installed initial vital communication systems at various supports. In many instances men were converted from other specialties. On one occasion men were given the mission of moving an enormous quantity of telephone poles and without the aid of mechanical devices and accomplished the mission. Great difficulty was experienced during these weeks of peak communications because of a lack of sufficiently trained personnel. Personnel should be trained in several phases of signal operations so that they can be shifted from one activity to another with a minimum of lost time due to extra training. Experience has shown that the signal section should operate its own motor pool, complete with trained motor maintenance personnel. Signal vehicles are in constant use, thereby requiring adequate facilities for speedy repairs and efficient preventative maintenance. The port signal section should participate in planning before units are moved into the area in order that they may survey the existing communication facilities.